DAB members have visited the new皇崗port to discuss how travelers can get through customs faster. The port will have a co-location clearance system, which will shorten waiting time. Lawmaker Nixie Lam said the DAB offered more suggestions when they met mainland authorities. I spoke to her earlier about the visit to the new port, which is set to open later this year.
I think it's the speed is basically, we already see the out-tier decor and all the roof is already done. And we also visited the top, the helipad and everything. So at the moment, it's only the matter of inside, interior decor and everything. And we already can see the layout and everything. So I think we're quite keen to see the final result. We visited also the exhibition center where they explained the ideology behind the architecture and how they choose the last development, which design they pick on, and how the flow can actually go through. I think the flow is the most important thing for the citizens to understand. As you may know, it's one of the most busiest, the only 24 hours border that we're using, but at the same time, it's quite hectic. People have to hop on and hop off the car twice to get through the border. So that will drastically enhance the whole procedures. We also went in to have some other suggestions to see whether we can cut down the time, including whether for the vehicle passengers, whether the passenger doesn't really need to come down, because there is some problems that we can see that the people has to find their cars in a long line, and that will basically jam up the whole flows. To see, basically we're suggesting a few ways on whether we can use technology or other ways to actually enhance that part of it.
You mentioned that using technology to enhance the time needed for maybe drivers to pass through clearance. Regarding this issue, do you have any suggestions on how the efficiency can be speed up?
The problem is if you went through that border, it's actually quite dangerous. People actually need to find their car, and you see people doesn't have any patience with that sort of issue. So they just ran outside the road, try to find a car, sometimes with the baby in their hands, sometimes with the elderly in their arms and things like that. So we're trying to see whether there's some location apps. I mean, basically they have an iPod apps that you can actually locate your vehicles and then just try to find a way, maybe which lane your car actually in. You don't need to pass through 10 lanes to find your vehicles. And also whether the logistic of people and car flow that can actually enhance. So I think that part is out of our expertise, but we see the problems, so we bring up the problems to them to see whether there's something that we can enhance on that.
So to what extent do you think the new port will impact the number of overnight visitors from the mainland? I mean, what can be done to, attract them to spend at least a night here in Hong Kong?
I think that depending on the whole traveler pack is rather more important in this part of playing in this road. I think basically if you want to enhance or attract people to stay on, you need to find activities to let the travelers to play. You see, travelers these days, they want experience. They want to stay in Hong Kong, try the culture. So I think a lot of the traveling vouchers or whatever package deal events is more attractive than whether we can focusing on the port arrangements. I think a lot of we've spoke to the government on the other bureaus to see whether they can work more with the travelers agencies or some KOLs on advising them a short 3 days route on how to tour around Hong Kong, say sometimes maybe plus Shenzhen or whatever, or Macau. I think that sort of suggestion are more closer to the habits of these days traveling, like habits.
So given that this port will adopt a co-location clearance arrangement, by how much time do you think it will shorten the time needed for clearance?
At the moment, at least, we will cut down the transportation time for sure, less the walking and everything. I'm not really sure about how much time we can actually cut down because we cannot predict how much people are going to use that port, but at least 2 to 3 times for sure because the transportation time was static there. Hopefully, we can cut down more because in the long run, they will just only use one card, right? The go-home card, return card. So basically, that will further enhance, cut at least 50% on the card usage and walking and everything. So I think they can feel the efficiency for sure.